Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome back. I'm Jeremy Goodwin. For the 23rd year, Twangfest is gathering musicians from around the region and the country this week for a 4-day-long celebration of Americana music and more. It's an event that a certain stripe of music lover in the region really looks forward to every year. Joining me now in studio to talk about Twangfest 23 are John Wendland. He's one of the organizers. He's also a member of the band Rough Shop. And Seth Porter of the group based here in St. Louis, Essential Knots. John, Seth, thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So Twangfest is an all-volunteer project, and this is your 23rd year. John, is anyone still around from back in the beginning?
Roy Caston and myself have been there since the second year. Well, Roy Caston has been here since year one, so I take that back.
And so you're a nonprofit organization, right? How many people does it take to pull this thing off every year?
We have a group it ranges between 6 and 8 people, and everyone just we just go on whoever's got strengths in a particular area, and then we just all tackle it.
And you just make it happen.
Yeah, we do. We've kind of got down to a science now after 23 years.
It was smooth sailing from 22 on, right?
Yes, pretty much. Though you always get your share of challenges every year.
Well, for folks who might not be familiar with it, let's start with the name of the festival. What exactly is this twang you speak of, sir?
Well, Twangfest, it originally came out of a listserv called Postcard 2, which started out as a talk about, for lack of a better term, alternative country and roots-based music. And Postcard 2 took on a lot wider field of interest in music. So they decided from that, there was a lot of bands on there, and they said, hey, we should all get together and have all our bands play. So originally, it was all the original founders of Twangfest were all band members, and they decided to have it centrally located, and they did that in St. Louis. And it wasn't long after that we decided, hey, let's start getting the bands that we love to take part in this. And as we did that, we started going a little further afield than just twang. You know, we used to say it's a really wide tent.
It's a wide tent.
Yeah.
Well, so twang. What are folks thinking of when they hear that?
Well, my guess would be alternative country, country, roots-based music, singer, songwriter.
Seth, do you incorporate some of that twang into what you do?
We are probably one of the less twangy bands to ever
lower twang level
on Twangfest, but I do think we have sort of a songwriter foundation, and I think that's part of it, even though the sort of dressing is a lot less country and kind of a different flavor, but at the core is still songwriter and songcraft.
Sure. And Essential Knots is just your latest band in St. Louis, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I guess it's already been a few years. It's sort of a project that came up after the end of my last band. I was kind of sitting in with some other folks, and Kevin Bachman and I got together and started working on some material, and the band was sort of born out of that.
Great. Well, let's listen to a little bit of that. We have a track that I think is pretty freshly recorded, right?
We released this last summer, but it's going to be part of the full-length album that we're still in the process of working on, but I'd say we've passed the 2/3 turn, maybe.
Okay. Well, let's listen to a little bit of Essential Knots. This is a track called In the Sun.
Bodies in motion, staying in motion, bodies at rest are staying at rest. Never a question about devotion, doing whatever is suiting us best. Separate ways until the long dark night is done. Tomorrow we wake up in the sun.
The important titular phrase there, We slipped in. We wake up in the sun.
I appreciate that.
So we're all smiling and nodding ahead here. I know musicians love genre labels, but I'm getting a pretty heavy indie rock kind of vibe here.
I think that's pretty accurate, yeah.
Yeah, but I gotta say real quick, but besides that being a great summer song, Seth and Kevin Bachman, they understand melody. You know, I hear just great classic pop songcraft every time I hear their songs.
Yeah, there's a real sense of intentionality behind the sound that you've created there.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, the four of us, and especially maybe the two of us, Kevin and I, have not identical but very overlapping influences, and we're both sort of hanging out in record stores, sort of music lovers. There's, you know, a lot of different varieties of music lovers, and that is ours for sure. Sort of the historical, also current, but historical, hanging out in the record store, deep cut music fan.
Do you anticipate the Twangfest being a good audience for Essential Knots?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bands that we're opening the show, and I will not flatter us by thinking that even one of the tickets sold for Saturday night was because of us, but there are definitely some. I mean, Superchunk is a legendary band, and Wussy is incredible as well, so we're very happy to be on that stage. And just my past experiences as an audience member at Twangfest is that it's always a kind of a deep music fan audience. Kind of the diehards come out for Twangfest, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned Superchunk, which I think is the biggest name from just a commercial standpoint on the bill this year, yes?
That would be correct. Yeah, it's amazing they're playing a venue that small. You know, they've been around since '89 out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And they form Merge Records, which is just a really incredibly well-respected independent label. And they put out so many great releases, not just them, but for other artists as well. Man, we're lucky to have them. That's all I got to say.
How does Superchunk fit into your broader project here?
Well, we love melodic pop, we love melodic rock, and they certainly fit that bill.
Sure.
And the band right before them, Wussy, they're out of Cincinnati, Ohio. It's made up of Chuck Cleaver and Lisa Walker. And if you haven't seen them live, they're pretty phenomenal. I always say Lisa Walker is my favorite woman in rock and roll next to Patti Smith.
Okay.
Yeah.
While we're here, why don't we mention a few more of the headliners? There's 4 different nights of shows, right?
Oh, yes, yeah. And they vary a lot. On the first night, the headliner is Craig Finn and the Uptown Controllers out of New York City. Craig Finn, most famous for the Hold Steady, but he gets to explore a lot more. He goes a lot different directions when he plays solo. He's got 4 albums out, including a new one. Then right before that, the band I'm probably as excited to see as anybody is called the Delines. They're out of Portland, Oregon. And it's the first time they've ever played in St. Louis. And the Delines are made up of Amy Boone, who sings all the lead vocals, and Willie Loudon, who writes all the songs. And he's amazing, a lyric writer and songwriter. He just got nominated for a Penn Faulkner Best Fiction for his latest novel. There's only 5 that get nominated. This is 2019. And he's had 3 books made into movies, and he's just tremendous. And she's a tremendous vocalist to get the songs across. Next night, Thursday, is headlined by James McMurtry. He almost needs no introduction. He's also been around as long as Superchunk from 1989, and he's Larry McMurtry's son. He's just, once again, just a really great songwriter. He could pack the place on his own.
Seth, do you get to put on your fan hat at all for something like this?
Probably once we're finished playing.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it cool until our opening set is over with, and then I will definitely be fanning out for the rest of the evening.
Well, Americana, as I hear it, is a genre that looks back and it looks forward at the same time. Does that resonate
When
with
it's
you at
done
all?
well, yes.
When it's done well. Well, let's hear from another group that I think is, you can hear they're definitely rooted in a musical tradition, but doing its own thing. Burney sisters are from Columbia, Missouri. This is a song of theirs called Running Away.
Got home late last night and I didn't get a chance to rest my tired eyes, and all I can see is black and white. Just tell me something that I don't know. Speak a little louder 'cause the wind is blowing. I'll listen to whatever you've got to say. Nah, 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 running away. Running away. Running away, running away,
So is that something of a familiar sound of what we might hear across the 4 days?
It's familiar for that day.
Okay.
That's widely varied after that. That's the Burney sisters out of Columbia, Missouri. They hold the distinction of being the youngest artist ever to play at Twangfest. The oldest member in that band is 14 years old.
Oh, man.
It's two sisters, 14 and 11 years old, Olivia and Emma, and they have another one younger than them coming up in the ranks named Bella.
Oh.
They're that young, and I feel like they've been at it for a few years too.
Yeah.
They're veterans, young veterans.
Yeah, they are. They play places like Roots Blues Barbecue Festival, which is big. Yeah, they're gonna be fun to have on the bill, especially right before James McMurtry.
How do you set up these 4 nights thematically? Are you trying to group bands that have some things in common? Or?
Yeah, we want to have bands that make sense together, and we all make a wish list of bands we'd love to see play, and then we kind of, whoever we have the consensus of the most people who pick a band, we go for them first. But you're subject to the whims of what their touring schedule's like, if they're even in the country, and then so. There's certain bands we have on the list every year who we've never been able to get. It's just the nature of the game. Then other bands, this year it fell into place really, really well.
Seth, in your experience as somebody who likes to play in different bands, get involved in different projects, what kind of a town is St. Louis for supporting the kind of work that you like to do as a musician?
I think it's been I found it to be very supportive. I mean, I think the sort of eternal question is always, how do we get more people as part of the sort of greater audience of people who are making kind of live music a priority in what they do with their leisure time, especially kind of this smaller scale live music. I think the sports arena concerts and Riverport concerts do just fine, but we can always use some help in the smaller time.
So many venues, right?
There's a lot of venues, but I think that right now is a really great time talent-wise in town. I feel like in a city like St. Louis, it kind of ebbs and flows, and there's sometimes a few key cogs that can have a big effect by their presence or by their absence. But right now, I think there's a lot of really exciting stuff going on, and I've been a part of it for, I suppose, going on a dozen years now, and it feels like a really robust time as far as local music that I'm excited about, both being involved in personally, but also just as a fan.
John, I know you're not here to push your band too heavily, but I don't want to let you out the door without just getting a taste of it. Let's just get a feeling of what you're doing with your group. So this is from Rough Shop. It is a song called Flywheel. Let's just hear a taste of this.
He doesn't know his load. Streams of hard times, as if they're all about to go. Maybe just listen in the dark. The one thing he knows.
So as I listen to that, it seems to me like something that comes out of the universe of alt country. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, parts of that album definitely are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's part of the history of this region, isn't it? And where a place like Twangfest makes sense in the first place.
That makes sense because there's been so much great amalgamation of different styles of music have come out here. Everything from Chuck Berry to Ike Turner, you go on and on. It's just amazing fertile ground for music, and is today.
It is today.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much. That's about all the time we have. Seth and John, thanks for coming in today. We'll look for Twangfest 4 nights coming up later this week. You're listening to St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Straight onto the fire. Get just below the surface, looking shadow breathe and feel strong. Clinging to the myth that you were cheated on.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.